The day was the 23rd of March 2006. The news on Channel 1 ended earlier than usual, and then suddenly they start showing the usual warm-up videos before a football match, but there was something completely unusual to 5-year-old me. Why wasn't any of the Giants playing? Why were there two Vitória clubs playing against each other, and why did they have such captivating badges? That night, I saw a lot of things for the first time, including extra time and a penalty kick shootout between two historic sides that happened to share the same name. In the end, Vitória de Setúbal won and went on to play against Porto in the 2005-06 Taça de Portugal final. Spoiler alert, they didn't win that year. But as time passed, I immersed myself deeper and deeper into the lore of football and realized Vitória FC, the green one, was almost an honorary giant, considering they've played in 72 editions of the Portuguese league and in 70 European matches. Vitória de Setúbal has an incredible list of accolades, but as I got older, I saw them constantly struggling with financial issues until they finally succumbed to regional football. I never really knew why they were broke, and I assume many of you watching didn't either, but today I'm gonna explain everything. In this video, I'll detail the rise of Vitória into an iconic symbol of Setúbal, their close calls to glory, and the definitive reason behind their downfall. So, as usual, let me give you some context. At the beginning of the 20th century, football was still a novel concept brought by travelers and students. Initially, there were a couple of sporting clubs that played football in the city of Setúbal, such as Grupo Académico, Bonfim Futebol Clube, or Setubalense Sporting Clube. But in 1910, thanks to an internal dispute, Joaquim Venâncio, Henrique Santos, and Manuel Gregório abandoned Bonfim Futebol Clube, and just a couple of days later, alongside a few other guys, Sport Vitória was formed, inspired by a sentence Joaquim Venâncio used to fire up his teams: "A vitória será nossa." Over the next 20 years, Vitória established themselves as one of the best clubs in the country. They dominated Setúbal and frequently challenged the teams from the capital following the creation of Portugal's very own championship. Though it was really a cup competition and not a league, Vitória frequently reached the latter stages of the competition, including a runners-up finish in 1927. That prestige opened up a lot of doors that only helped elevate Vitória. Before the usual international competitions, clubs played friendlies in order to develop and learn from others, and Vitória had the chance to play against Sevilla, Betis, Ferencváros, Colo-Colo, Vasco da Gama, among many other historical sides. That experience paid off, and following the definitive creation of a Portuguese league, Vitória became a staple of Portuguese football with consistent showings in the league, long runs in the cup, and even their own group of fans, the 8th Army, the oldest in the country. But this was merely the beginning. On the 16th of September 1962, Vitória de Setúbal officially opened their new stadium, Estádio do Bonfim. With a 35,000 capacity, Bonfim was one of the most modern and beautiful stadiums ever built in Portugal. Coincidentally or not, this date marked the beginning of Super Vitória and the club's golden era. With a squad full of future club legends like Jacinto João, Jaime Graças, Joaquim Conceição, and Fernando Tomé, Vitória lived the best period in their history. Os Sadinos dominated the cup and made it to 5 out of 10 finals during the 1960s, winning it all in 1965 and in 1967. That last one is still considered to this day one of the best Portuguese Cup finals of all time due to the back and forth action on the pitch and Académica and Vitória's spectacle in the stands. This was a completely different degree of dominance, but it doesn't end here. Fernando Vaz might have led Vitória to an unseen level in knockout competitions, but when he left, his replacement José Maria Pedroto took things to a whole nother level. Vitória reached an incredible 3rd place finish at the end of the 69-70 season and then topped it with a runners-up finish in 1972. This Vitória was menacing. They had stayed a decade on top, neck and neck with the Giants, collecting trophies and unimaginable wins in Europe against the likes of Liverpool, Lyon, Fiorentina and Inter. But unfortunately, the 25th of April 1974, a date that marked the beginning of a new era in Portugal, also served as a beginning of the end for Vitória. With the end of the Salazar regime, the fish canning industry plummeted, and since that industry was basically Setúbal's main economic resource, the club was unable to keep the same title challenging squads that they had just a few years prior. About a decade later, in 1986, os Stadinos got relegated for the first time in over 25 years. Now, they were able to come back, mostly due to a huge handout by their city that basically let Vitória use the stadium's surrounding area to build houses and profit off them. Vitória could have used that money to deal with their growing debt and achieve some much needed stability, but instead, they chose to build super teams season after season that, despite their undeniable quality, with bowlers like Iekini, Hélio or Chiquinho Conde, still failed to make any financial profit whatsoever. With each passing season, their debt grew larger and larger, but I believe their situation only reached a point of no return in the year 2000. That year, Vitória sold the surface rights for 90 years to the company Pluripar, which in partnership with the Setúbal City Council was supposed to build a new stadium and additional properties in a specific area of the city. At this point, we can already say the deal was ridiculous. I mean, the payment was a fixed amount, meaning the value of those installments today wouldn't hold the same worth decades later. The real disaster, however, came with the collapse of BPN. The bank's majority shareholder was SLN, which also owned Pluripar. When BPN was nationalized due to a massive 1.8 billion debt, everything crumbled. From that moment on, there was no money, no rights, no new stadium, nothing. From season to season, os Stadinos had a rope tied around their neck. If you were willing to sign with the club, you'd be a dumbass if you didn't assume you weren't getting paid from the middle of the season onwards. Time and time again, Vitória owed their players several months of wages, but that wasn't the final straw. Unfortunately, that happens quite a lot in Portugal, and clubs get by just as long as they don't owe anything to the Portuguese state. Well, Vitória owed 5.2 million. And that was only towards the tax authority and social security, because by 2020 their total debt had surpassed 23 million euros. Luck eventually runs out. Though Vitória miraculously avoided relegation on the pitch in the 1920 season, their situation reached a point where they could no longer afford a license to play professionally, so they were relegated directly to the third tier. Lacking top-flight sponsorships and TV revenue, Vitória was forced to sell its SAD at a bargain price to the first investor who showed up. Enter Hugo Pinto, a hotel industry businessman who promised to cover all their debts, which by then had already exceeded 60 million euros. Although he fulfilled that commitment for 3 years, the sporting management left a lot to be desired. No matter how much was invested in the squad, the team played poorly, and in 2023, Vitória ended up relegated to the Campeonato de Portugal, the 4th tier of Portuguese football. The problem was Pinto had banked on securing second-tier revenue by 2024, and even though the club fought its way back to Liga 3 on the pitch, Hugo Pinto pulled the plug on the sports shareholding company and let it go bankrupt. And just like that, Vitória had to start over from the district leagues. Now, as for the current season, Vitória is competing in Setúbal's 2nd district division while carrying 9 million euros in debt, and they're running out of options. So much so that the management decided to sell the stands behind the goals at Estádio do Bonfim. And guess who bought them? Hugo fucking Pinto. But at the same time, I still believe there are reasons to feel optimistic. You see, during the past 40 years, despite being crippled with debt, Vitória still managed to exceed all expectations multiple times. They made it to several cup finals, and they famously beat both Benfica and Sporting to win the Portuguese Cup and the very first edition of the League Cup. Os Stadinos are tough motherfuckers with gigantic fighting spirit that never leave their club alone, even when it seems like it's breathing its final breath at the very bottom of the Portuguese football pyramid. I would be lying if I said they were going to make a triumphant return, because there's absolutely no reason to make me believe they will, but you simply can't erase history. Setúbal is an important region in Portugal with a clear identity, and Vitória is part of it. I do know that snake oil salesmen pop up in Bonfim Stadium left and right, but maybe one day, one of them will have legitimate plans and save Vitória from certain death. What do you think? Can Vitória still be saved? Let me know your opinion in the comments, and please, if you like this type of content, leave a comment, a like, or even share it somewhere relevant. I was literally writing this shit at 11 PM after a long ass day at work, and though I don't do this for the money, I definitely want to grow this channel and spread knowledge about Portuguese football to more people like you. As always, thanks for watching till the end, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one.